I think the most important provision really under the General Data Protection Directive, remember for cookies and online tracking, is that any collection of personal data is prohibited unless there's a legitimate basis. And I think contractual necessity could be a legitimate basis where you need the information in order to perform a contract, but that would apply to some instances of tracking, but for example, not to marketing. Also, there's a possibility to process data where there's a legitimate interest, but again, that's not likely to apply to marketing. And for a lot of the tracking activities, you would need to get consent. Well, under the directive at least, there is no specific form requirement or no requirement to get explicit consent. But then there's guidance from the Working Party 29 in the context of online behavioral advertisement that consent for collection of data for online behavioral advertisement would need to be explicit, and a mere silence or a mere implied consent without any affirmative action, without any reaction from the user would not be sufficient. Also, the regulation would, if adopted as is, would impose a requirement for explicit consent. That means that then it would need to be either some click or there needs to be some affirmative action. So I think if you then have to get consent under the General Data Protection regime, I think you have to consider these consent requirements as well. And of course, under the General Data Protection regime, you have restrictions to transfer data outside Europe. You would need to comply with the full set of transfer restrictions. What's important as well is to the extent you're collecting personal data and the information you collect is considered personal data, you would need to give notice. So you would need to tell the user what you're collecting, for what purposes, with whom you share the information. And again, the draft regulation would impose more onerous conditions on that and has more specific requirements as to the details you need to inform users about. What causes probably issues for that kind of tracking information is that under current law, you would need to provide access. So a user has a right to request additional information, and that may cause problems for website operators, because it may not even be possible for them to relate that information to individuals to verify whether that access request is justified. And here the regulation would be helpful in stating that there's no need to gather additional information in order to comply with that request. So there's some help on that. And of course, you need to address all the security standards where you're collecting personal data. So you would potentially need to give notice where there's a data breach. And you need to make sure that written or equivalent data processing agreements are in place. And that's quite often forgotten, that I think where service providers are used, I think, for example, for analytics, that there's a need for a data processing agreement with these providers as well.